let's move on then. One of the other exciting things that's happening is with respect to the All Nation line, which we all grew up with in the hobby. It had been out of production, mysteriously missing for Lord knows how many, 20, 25 years. And John Wubble has taken on a labor of love to bring the All Nation line back. And I'd like to have John tell us about that.
Okay, thank you, David. Prior to my involvement getting into the All Nation line, I was doing a lot of 3D printing myself to upgrade a lot of the O-scale two-rail models that I had worked on years ago with my grandfather. When he passed away, of course, I inherited his models, and a lot of them needed some tender loving care, so I could not find parts, and I was developing my skills to be able to bring some of that equipment back to life and operational. And thank you to Dan Dowdy, who introduced me to the Pope family. The All Nations was in a family trust, and we eventually got around to an agreement to purchase it. And my intent was to try to revive the business and bring it back for O-scale modelers. I also need to thank a few other people. My sister Loretta maintains and upkeeps our website and does the bookkeeping. I have another sister, Kathy, who's one of the board members on the O-scale Kings, who keeps me flying straight. She's been actively involved in databasing all the hundreds of parts that the company had and organizing that, updating reference models and kits, which has enabled us to bring some of those back onto the market. We've upgraded some of those with 3D printing. I would say that perhaps we're not as detailed yet as Ross. We've done a number of kits where we've tried to provide a basic shell as an introduction for the beginner modeler who doesn't have a lot of model building skills, and the younger crowd that may not have a whole pot of money to buy into some of the ready to run equipment, but they would get their feet wet, and sooner or later, once they get hooked into O-scale two-rail, they will eventually go for the more highly detailed models that are available in kits. I'd like to thank Dan Dowdy because he also helped us bring the website online. He hosts for us, and we're actually thinking about a utility that would generate a catalog for us. I keep getting requests for printed catalogs, I guess because in the past, the All Nations issued catalogs with photos and all the information and parts, and there's still, I guess, some of the folks out there who hold those catalogs fairly dearly, and they generally figure that since we're reviving, we're going to come out with a catalog. So we hope to automate that a little bit and be able to provide that information either online or direct mail if requested. A good amount of work that we have taken on is such that to revive a business like this, and I was talking to Eric Peterson last week, is it just doesn't do any good to throw money at it. We had to kind of triage everything, and I'm going through the documentation, digitizing it to archive it, to make it available for future modelers. I've released some of that stuff already, or sent it to people upon request. And one example I can cite to you is we've reconnecting with a lot of the old vendors that used to make parts for All Nations. And a lot of them were mom and pop shops. They do small batch runs and jobs. And we've had 4, 5, 6 different folks I've talked to that used to make the parts, and then their business was passed on to the next generation, and they still have a lot of the documentation and blueprints that were originally used to develop wheels, axles, parts to the tower drive, that sort of thing. And we did receive a lot of tooling when we got the business, and some of that tooling, like punch dies, for example, needed to be repaired or upgraded. So we connected with Dayton Lamina and ordered some of their punches, $300-400 order. And that's why I say you just can't throw money at it. You have to kind of do the intellectual work on a lot of this stuff first and determine and prioritize what needs to be resurrected. And that's a good amount of what we're doing today. I have not touched yet too much on the passenger stuff or too much on the traction. We're getting more and more into traction, and somewhat get delayed because we get a lot of requests for doing CAD work and just kind of specialty work for a handful of modelers. And so that's kind of where we're at with reviving the business. And I can't tell you how many well wishes we have received, email, being at the, train shows like Chicago. People were very outgoing and supportive. And so anything we've been earning so far, we're just putting it back into the business in hopes that someday we'll be able to hand it off to somebody else and keep it alive. We intend to also keep coming out with new product and keep things fresh, as well as supporting the legacy products that are in the field. So any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
John, I suspect that everybody on this call has probably had either an All Nation NW2 EMD switcher or an All Nation F3 or both. What's the status on the tooling and reproduction of those models?
Well, inventory wise, we have about 40 sets of right and left sides for the F7 and F3 units, but we're short on roofs, and we have only a couple of NW2 in inventory. And the dies we located at Craft Die Casting in Chicago. They have been storing those big dies for the last 15 years, and we paid them a visit when we went to the Denver O-Scale convention in 2021. And they brought those out with forklift trucks. They're huge, and separated them, and they look to be in very good condition. And the owner of Craft Die Casting, his name is Jim Sambria, said they would still fit in their die casting machines if we wanted to make more. And at that point, his business was pretty busy. And I said, well, if we wanted to make roofs or parts for the NW2, cast them using those dies, we'll do it when you can fit us in your schedule. And then we met with him again when we were in Chicago. And so we're trying to determine when we can run some pieces, primarily those roofs, so we can finish out the 40 sets of each and make those available. So we were very surprised they were still in existence. And there's rumored that the die for casting the B unit was broken. I haven't confirmed that yet. it looks to me like they use the same die, but switch a plug-in. And the roofs are pretty much the same in terms of size. The only difference really on those are the stacks. So yeah, we are hopeful, and if we do not make anything with those, I hope we will save them, archive them for historical purposes for the company.
Terrific. Questions, comments concerning John's resurrection of All Nation?
Yes, Eric, John, tell us about where you stand on the drive system. Are you looking at reproducing the gear tower, or are you going to use nylon chain? What's your thoughts?
Well, as you know, over the years, they had various versions, I call them, from helical gears to chain drives. They've had some connections like these plastic tubes that I never liked, that were broke or shattered. And I currently have a couple of videos out there on just the drivetrain that we were developing for the F unit and for the switcher, a more updated version, because as you know, on the original ones, they were somewhat hard to get in and out of the body for servicing. These that we're doing will just drop right in and out. And as of the last few weeks, we've talked to two of our vendors that have made parts for the tower drives. And we do have some of the blueprints on those and the drawings still. And Misek Engineering in Franklin Park did a lot of those for us. In fact, he has some parts still sitting there that were overruns. And I told him, I said, well, we'll take them off your hands for you. And then Emco Gearing, which is in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. I just met up with those guys about 2 weeks ago, and they're a small family-run business, and they remember doing that. In fact, they pulled out the inspection sheets for a lot of the gears that they cut. So the only thing that is troubling is the cost of steel and brass these days. So I'm going to get a full quote from Emco next Friday, which will be good for 10 days. He said normally it's 30, but the price volatility on raw material is such that they're only giving it for like a 2-week period. And he said cutting the gears is no big deal. These days it's material. But I think where the demand will come in is that there's a lot of fellows that have the tower drives that need maintenance. Either those bronze bushings at the bottom of the drive where the bronze helical was that shows wear and it causes binding. Should be able to pop those out and put new bushings in. Same thing with the gears on the axles. They, after 30, 40 years of running, they show a lot of wear, and the worms don't always work too good. So we will actually have those parts, I think, available, or even the entire drives assembled if somebody doesn't want to mess around putting it back together as a kit.
Thank you. Anything further for John? It's really neat that the All Nation line is being revived. John, what is the website that people would go to get in touch with you?
It's allnationline.com.
That's pretty simple.
Yep.
And Ross's website is twinstarcars.com.
twinstarcars.com or modernerao.com.